All right, so here is the final part of chapter 26. So we're going to pick up on the ecological diversity and global impacts of bacteria and archaea. So bacteria and archaea produce extremely sophisticated enzymes. As a result, they can live in extreme environments. So if you recall, some of them are called extremophiles, and they also use toxic compounds as food. So if you remember the role of bioremediation, using archaea and bacteria to get rid of pollution. So the complex chemistry and abundance of bacteria and archaea make them important forces for global change. Okay. So one important aspect of bacteria is their ability to fix nitrogen and their role in the nitrogen cycle. So all organisms require nitrogen to synthesize proteins and nucleic acids. However, the the nitrogen that's available in the atmosphere um, can't be used in that form. So they need to use nitrogen in the form of ammonia. But in order to get ammonia, it has to be the bacteria have to convert the nitrogen from the atmosphere into ammonia. Okay. So nitrogen fixation. Certain bacteria and archaea are the only organisms capable of converting nitrogen to ammonia. That's why if you've heard of nitrogen fixing bacteria in plants, oh sorry, nitrogen fixing bacteria that live in a symbiotic relationship with some plants, that's what they're talking about. So there's some plants like legumes that have nitrogen fixing bacteria in their roots that help them fix the nitrogen. So by legumes, I mean like plants in the pea family, so like peas and beans. So the ammonia is converted into nitrites as a byproduct, okay, of respiration. And then nitrites can be converted into nitrates by other bacteria. And then the nitrates, the NO3, are then converted back into nitrogen, okay, by another set of bacteria. So that's part of the nitrogen cycle. So the movement of nitrogen atoms through ecosystems. Okay. So here's the nitrogen from the atmosphere. That's converted into ammonia by the bacteria. And then as a byproduct of respiration, the ammonia gets turned into nitrites. Then the nitrites are converted into nitrates. And then the nitrates are converted back into nitrogen. Okay. So this is just a good way to summarize the nitrogen cycle, but I wouldn't worry too much about memorizing the complete cycle. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over kind of like the big picture ecological impacts of this, and that's what uh, you should focus on. Okay. So nitrate pollution. So with the widespread of ammonia fertilizers, because a lot of farmers do is they add the ammonia to their crops to help them grow. But then once the crops and the bacteria use the ammonia, then you get nitrates as a byproduct. And then the nitrates are the ones that cause pollution in aquatic environments. So when they find their way from like a stream, they find their way into a stream and then they end up in the ocean, they cause what are called dead zones. Because in when these zones, there's a lack of oxygen. Okay. And we're going to go over how why that happens. So here we have the farmers spraying or adding the ammonia to the crops. In this case, it's corn. And then so the corn does use the ammonia to build proteins and grow. The soil-dwelling bacteria use the ammonia. And then what you get as a byproduct is nitrates. So the nitrates are the ones that go into the soil and then end up in the streams in some kind of water source. So they end up in the stream and then they go into the ocean. When they get into the ocean, the nitrates stimulate blooms of marine algae and also cyanobacteria. And when those bloom, so they bloom, they grow, but then when they eventually die, then you get decomposers that come in, okay, and then they grow rapidly, and they are the ones that cause the dead zones because when they grow rapidly, they um, they use up a lot of oxygen, and so when they use a lot of oxygen, well, essentially there's no oxygen in these areas, so there's not uh, a lot of things that can live here. Okay, so that's why they're called dead zones. Now we're going to go into some lineages of bacteria. Okay. So bacteria, so there's 25 lineages, but we're not going to go into all of them, just a few. They're classified by distinctive morphological characteristics, metabolic characteristics, or phylogenetic analysis of gene sequence data. So the morphological characteristics, if those were like when we went over the gram staining, so gram positive, gram negative, the metabolic characteristics are like the one we talked about, the phototropes versus the chemotropes and all those different variations. Okay. So here's some examples that the book provides of different bacteria, but these are the ones that we're gonna go over. So just a couple or just a few. So the first one is Chlamydiae. So this is the least diverse of all the major bacterial lineages. There's only 13 species of these that are known. All of them are spherical and small, and they live as parasitic endosymbionts. So that means that they live inside of their host cells. The other one is cyanobacteria. So these are found as independent cells. Okay. They form chains. They, f- they have chains that form filaments or colonies. And these are the only ones that produce oxygen. Um, so these are photosynthesizing bacteria, and they produce oxygen, nitrogen, and organic compounds. So a lot of these feed organisms that live on the surface of waters, okay, whether it's fresh water or marine environments. Okay, then we have proteobacteria. So these are diverse in morphology. Some species form stalk cells, others form aggregates of cells organized as spore-forming fruiting bodies. And they have several species that cause disease, and others play key roles in nitrogen cycling. And then finally, we have the spirochetes. So from the group Spirochetes. Oh, sorry, this one's Spirochetes. This one's Spirochetes. So these are distinguished by the corkscrew shape and flagella. So the flagella is contained within the outer sheath, which surrounds the cell. And so it beats back and forth that they and is what they use for locomotion. These are also parasitic, and they're disease-causing species that are propelled by this motion into the tissues of their host. And there's other Spirochaete species that are extremely common in freshwater and marine environments. Okay, all right, so that's going to do it for chapter 26. Okay. So this is it, and so up to this is all the information that you guys are going to be responsible for the quiz. So it's only going to be chapter 1, chapter 25, and chapter 26. Okay. All right. So till next time.